The cold of Winterfell settled into stone and marrow alike on the night the boy called Wylus took up the quiet bundle in the corner of the nursery. His great hands, broad as slabs of old oak but gentle as a nursemaid's breath, closed around swaddling cloth the color of morning frost, and he lifted the infant Jon Snow from the carved cradle Ned Stark had commissioned on a ride south through the Barrowlands. Wylus loved the weight of the child, that small, steady warmth against his chest, the way dark lashes quivered upon pale cheeks in sleep. No one had asked him to carry the boy tonight. No nurse was absent. No danger prowled the corridor beyond the nursery's ironwood door. Yet Wylus felt an urging he did not understand, like a voice beneath water or a song half remembered from a dream, and it bid him move. He did not speak the thing that forever lingered upon his tongue. For inside the nursery he was silent, as if afraid to wake the slumbering candles or rouse old Nan, dozing in her rocker by the hearth. Shadows fluttered like soft wings against the rushes-strewn floor, and the fire gave off the faint scent of spice driftwood fetched from White Harbor on Glover's ships, long since unmoored. A hush filled the high rafters, so complete it seemed carved into the air itself, and Wylus, enormous and awkward and dear, could not bear to break it. Instead he rocked on his heels, humming a tune without words, only the rise and fall of contentment, while the babe he cradled breathed slow and deep, unaware of prophecy or promise, curse or crown. Wylus' life, until this hour, was tethered to simple things: straw and saddle, oat mash, and the sweet nicker of mares. Yet something older than horses crept into his blood tonight, and the name that folk whispered over ale, Prince that was promised, beat like a second heart within the little bundle he held. A smith's hammer struck in Wylus' mind each time he thought the phrase, though he barely knew its meaning. Legends were for maesters and kings. He was neither. He was servant to House Stark, stable boy, simpleton to some, companion to fewer, and the gentle giant who muttered one word over and over, though not now, not in the stillness. The hush bound his lips. Moonlight silvered the snow accumulating on the windowsill. Wylus glanced once at old Nan. Her eyelids fluttered, thin as parchment. Her lips pursed as if she too dreamed of forgotten songs. Beyond the nursery's thick door, a distant horn moaned against the night, one long note from the battlements, to mark the changing of the watch. No alarm, only routine. Still, Wylus flinched. The boy in his arms stirred, gray eyes opening, first unfocused, then sharpening on Wylus' enormous face, as though it were familiar ground. Jon did not cry. He merely watched, placid, perhaps trusting in the steadiness of those arms. And Wylus felt, in that gaze, a tug towards something vast and hidden, a tapestry of root and river and blood. He did not understand it, only that the Godswood called. The stable yard lay deserted when Wylus emerged. The air clenched around him, so cold that each breath felt like chewing glass. He wore no cloak, only a thick woolen tunic patched at elbow and breast. Yet he was warm. The babe drew heat, the way dry moss drew flame, though Wylus knew it not. He trudged across packed snow, boots crunching softly, mindful of the infant's fragile neck. Overhead, the sky glittered, a wolf's pelt flung with diamonds, and Wylus' heart pounded in timorous wonder. At the yard's far end, past the kennels where lean hounds slept curled nose to tail, the gate into the Godswood sagged on its hinges. The iron latch would shriek if opened, and in his head Wylus saw lanterns flare in sentinel hands, saw the kindly Maester Luwin scurry like a wren in his grey robes, saw Sir Roderick frown and ask why the stable boy wandered with Lord Stark's bastard in the frostbit hours before dawn. Yet the latch made no sound when Wylus pressed it. The hinge swung as if oiled that very morning. Snow-muffled step and heartbeat alike. He slipped inside. Within the walls, the air changed. Even the cold felt older. Pines embraced the night, their branches sagging under white weight, and the black pool at the Godswood's heart lay still as blown glass, reflecting stars with such clarity they seemed trapped beneath its surface. The heart tree watched, bony white and twisted, carved with a face that wept crimson sap. It loomed over the grove like a silent judge, Winterfell's men prayed here before voyages and wars. Its women knelt here in secret hopes. Willis had come once as a child, lulled by his mother on a feast day, and remembered little but the taste of moss on his tongue when he licked frost from an exposed root. Tonight those roots wound across ground and time, beckoning. Jon's fingers emerged from the swaddle, tiny and pink. He burbled, not a cry, only questioning. Willis paused beneath a pine whose needles dripped icicles like broken glass. A breeze swirled, lifting the babe's dark hair, and carried the scent of wet earth where the first snows had begun to melt against hidden spring. Somewhere, a raven croaked. Another answered. Willis shivered, but not from cold. It was the sense that he trespassed upon a page of story still unwritten, and his footsteps were blotting words meant for other feet. He moved closer to the pool. Snow shadows parted. The heart tree's eyes shone wet red in moonlight, as though the weirwood watched through tears. Willis' own eyes, gentle and hazel, widened. He felt something shift behind his forehead. Doors cracking open upon windswept halls. Jon Snow whimpered. Without thinking, Willis lowered the babe until the child's small feet nearly brushed the glassy water. Ripples fanned, first one, then many. A silent bell struck beneath the surface. The reflection of stars fractured. Across Winterfell, in a tower room over the library, Maester Luwin stirred from restless sleep. A quill rolled off his desk and scratched across parchment. The scroll he had been copying. A fragment of Valyrian prophecy recovered from the Citadel's lesser vaults. Ink smeared where the quill dragged, and the words he had etched only hours earlier bled into blots. He dreamed of snow falling upward and red eyes opening in white bark. He dreamed of a babe's hand reaching for the sky. When he woke, he could not name the fear that choked him, but he rose all the same, fumbling for his gray robe. In the Godswood, Willis felt heat surge through the cloth that wrapped Jon. The babe's eyes, so like the shade between storm cloud and winter river, fixed on the heart tree. They did not blink. No infants hold such stare, Willis thought distantly. Yet here it was. Steady, intent, old. He recalled old Nan's tales, the ones she saved for deep winter. The last green seers, whose very sight moved mountains. The children of the forest who sang in tongues of leaf and wind. The prince promised beneath bleeding stars to set the long night aflame. But those were tales, and Willis was no teller. Still, he sensed them now, stories leaning close, inhaling. He tried to speak, to soothe. Only one word came, that damned syllable that branded his tongue. Hodor. He breathed it, soft as fallen snow. Jon blinked then, and sudden cold pricked Willis and nape. The trees shuddered, a sound like sighing or 1,000 distant wings. From the pool rose a single bubble, breaking the surface with a pop so faint it might have been imagined. Again Willis said, Hodor Router. The name echoed between trunks, warping into the hush, until it felt older than his own birth. Branches scraped overhead, thin fingers on a drum. Willis heard footsteps crunch somewhere behind, thought for a moment that guards had found him, and turned. No one stood among the great sentinel pines. Yet he felt presence, as if eyes peered from every knot in every tree. He tried to step back, to retreat toward the gate, but the pool's edge seemed to hold him fast. Jon's swaddle grew warmer still, almost hot. A coil of steam rose where his bare foot brushed the frigid air, though Willis could not fathom how. Then the infant laughed. It was a joyous, bubbling sound, incongruous with the hour and the place, and it startled Willis more than any scream. He looked down. Jon's arm had wriggled free, reaching. The tiny fingers pointed not at Willis, nor at the heart tree, but at the reflection of the moon rippling in the pool. Willis felt a tug, light but insistent, pulling his attention to the water. In the silvery mirror, he saw himself towering, wide-shouldered, bashful, his usual half-a-smile absent, replaced with something like awe. But the infant's reflection, there the mirror lied. Silver light fractured into colors unseen by waking eyes, and where little Jon's face should have glimmered pale and round, Willis glimpsed shifting shadows. A man grown, cloaked in swirling black and white smoke, eyes aflame with orange dawn, a sword of star metal bleeding across twilight, ravens bursting from an endless night sky. Each image flickered, layered upon the next. Ice cracked underfoot, a sound as loud as Sir Roderick's war horn in the hush. Wyllis flinched, nearly dropping the child. The visions vanished. He staggered back, clutching John tight, the babe still laughing as though nothing were amiss. "Hodor," Wyllis breathed again, his voice trembling. At the stable doors of his mind, something bucked and whinnied. Fear. It charged in circles, stamping muck. He felt wrongness. He should not be here. Not now. Too soon. The words rose in him like bile. Too soon. The prophecy was a seed meant to flower in its season. He had torn it from dark soil before its first shoot could break ground. Panic flooded him. He turned to flee. Snow hammered his face as wind surged. The gate looked distant, though he had walked only yards. Pines loomed higher, crowding above, their branches tangling like giant ribs. Wyllis hurried, boots slipping on hidden roots, heart pounding. John wriggled, then stilled, his tiny head pressed beneath Wyllis' chin. The swaddle cooled, losing its strange warmth. Yet Wyllis dared not look down, dared not slow. Every heartbeat felt counted by some unseen reckoner. Behind him, the pool's surface calmed, but the air thrummed. Low, like storm far off. Leaves rustled despite no wind. Wyllis heard faint words in the rustle, though he could not parse them. It felt like many voices layered, murmuring through centuries. He prayed, a child's garbled plea to the old gods who seldom answered, begging safe passage back to stone walls and torchlight. Halfway to the gate, he stumbled. A root caught his toe, and he pitched forward. He twisted to shield John, and his shoulder met frozen earth with a crack. Pain lanced. Snow spattered. He held the babe aloft, trembling arms locked, teeth biting down on a cry. "Hodor," he groaned. John gurgled, unhurt. Wyllis forced himself up. His knee throbbed. Blood seeped where ice had scraped flesh, staining snow in bursts of crimson like weirwood tears. Another sound rose. Hooves. No towel. Drum beats. No. It was his own pulse, roaring in ears. He pressed on. Beyond the gate at last, warmth waited. A torch guttering in a bracket, a guardsman pacing. Wyllis saw him, a silhouette crowned in gold flame, and relief near felled him. He would hand over the babe and explain nothing, could explain nothing. The guardsman looked up. "Ho there," he called. "Who walks at this hour?" His voice bent around the windless yard, but Wyllis felt cold still, colder than before. Something pressed at his spine, as if claws of invisible frost clung to him from the Godswood. He forced steps, each harder than the last, and crossed the threshold. The gate groaned shut behind him, louder now than when opened. The guardsman strode forward, torch casting twin shadows that leapt upon surrounding walls. He squinted at Wyllis, then at the bundle. "Jon Snow?" he said, surprise rounding the words. "Boy? What are you about, carrying him in the dark?" Wyllis tried to answer, but his throat seized. He hugged John close. "Hodor," slipped out. "Just that." The guardsman frowned, concern creasing brow. "Best you bring him back quick. Lady Caitlin skin you." He reached for the babe. Wyllis hesitated, an impulse to clutch tighter, though he despised himself for it. Slowly, he surrendered John to the guard's arms. The moment hands changed. Wyllis felt the weight leave not only his arms, but his soul. The invisible claws loosened. The yard brightened, as if hidden clouds drifted from moon. John squirmed, then settled. Dark eyes lighting. Nothing about the babe seemed changed. No wisps of steam, no molten gaze. Merely child and sleep. Wyllis backed away, nodding, mumbling Hodor contritely. He turned, limped across snow toward the kitchens, toward any light that might erase what he had seen. The wind remained absent, yet high overhead, ravens circled the broken tower, stark shapes against moon. Their wings beat once, twice, sending faint echoes that sounded to Wylus like two words, too soon. Maester Lewin, having summoned torch and robe, hurried along the gallery above the great hall. His key ring clattered at his belt. Each shadow seemed a thing alive, skulking beyond reach of flame. He told himself it was nonsense. Shadows were only tricks of light. Yet his heart raced, as it had the night his chain was forged around his neck. When Archmaester Peristan had whispered the secret signs of bound knowledge. On that night, he had felt the weight of centuries settle into metal links. Tonight, that weight dragged anew. He descended the narrow stair to the yard, expecting frostbite air, yet the night felt wrong. Warm, almost a tease of early spring. Snow melted beneath his boots with soft sighs. He passed the smithy, where coals yet glimmered. He passed the granary, where barn cats prowled. He reached the nursery door and found a guardsman waiting with Jon Snow asleep against his shoulder. Relief warred with dread. The guardsman reported the stable boy Wylus' strange wander, the Godswood, the silence. Lewin listened, nodding, stroking beard. He took the babe gently, pressed a palm to tiny brow. Cool. Normal. Healthy. Yet when he looked closer, he found a smear of red on the swaddle's hem. Not blood but sap, thick and dark as welled wine, smelling of earth and iron. Godswood sap, drawn from no tree he knew save the heart tree. He touched the smear. It clung to his finger like honey and would not let go. He felt heat in it, pulsing faint. His mind flooded with half-remembered lore. The weir net, the green sea, the blood of the tree's memory. He rocked back, heart thrumming. The guardsman waited, eyes wide. Lewin steadied himself. Practicality first. Return the child, then question Wylus, then send for Sir Roderick, then perhaps write to the Citadel for guidance. Yet some instinct, older than his training, older than copper links of magic, whispered caution. Too soon, it murmured. He carried Jon past sleeping halls to the bedchamber, where Catelyn Stark lay with her infant son Robb and daughters in adjoining rooms. She woke as he entered, her eyes sharp despite the hour. She took Jon, confusion furrowing brow, but she asked no question Lewin dared not answer. Instead, she thanked him stiffly and laid the child among furs beside Robb, who snuffled without waking. Lewin bowed, retreating. The smear of sap, he noted, had vanished from the swaddle as though drunk by cloth. Back in the corridor, Lewin exhaled. Something vast had brushed this castle tonight, and he feared its shadow lingered. Wylus did not return to the stables. He went to the empty hayloft above, where mounds of fresh bedding formed soft hills. He collapsed among them, shivering despite the heat of his body. Tears, large and silent, slid down cheeks. He pressed palms to ears, rocking, murmuring Hodor like a prayer. The darkness behind his lids brimmed with images he could not banish. The heart tree's bleeding eyes, the pool reflecting futures, a babe crowned in flame-kissed snow. He tasted sap on his tongue, metallic and sweet. Too soon. The words flapped through his skull like tattered banners. He dozed at last, creature of burden easing into uneasy dream. In that dream he stood small again, a boy no taller than old Nan's knee. And a storm raged outside, but inside the Godswood it was calm. The heart tree spoke in voices that sounded like his mother's lullaby, and each branch dripped ruby tears that formed a path across snow. At the path's end stood a man whose face was moonlit shadow, cradling a sword of pale fire. The man looked at Wylus, and at the child within Wylus' arms. Child and sword melting into one shape, bright and terrible. Wylus woke thrashing. Dawn had not yet broken. The yard below lay still, as though nothing had happened. And perhaps nothing had, he tried to think. Only a walk. Only cold night air. But deep in his bones, truth squatted like a toad. Something had changed. The next morning found Lord Eddard Stark riding through the gate after an early inspection of the outer walls. He swung down from his gray courser, mud-spattering woolen breeches, and greeted Maester Lewin near the kennels. Wylus watched from afar, perched on a fence rail, nursing his bruised knee. The lord's face was solemn as always. Yet Willis thought he spied fresh worry etching lines deeper beside the eyes. Louvain spoke low, gesturing toward the Godswood. Ned listened, jaw tight, then glanced across the yard to Willis. Their eyes met. A shiver traveled Willis' spine. Though Ned Stark's gaze held no anger, its clarity bored through layers. Willis looked away. He wished to shrink smaller than a mouse, to vanish into hay. Instead, he sat rigid. When he dared glance again, Lord and Maester were already striding toward the great keep, their cloaks snapping in wind that rose from nowhere. Throughout the day, whispers darted like sparrows between servants. The stable boy's midnight wander, the sap on the bastard prince's cloth, the ravens restless in the rookery at dawn. Some laughed it off. Folk tales to spice dull chores. Others crossed themselves thrice. Willis endured their looks with bowed head. As dusk bled rose across sky, he groomed a foal born too early, its legs knobbly and uncertain. He whispered, "Hodor, Hodor," to calm the skittish animal. Yet even the comfort of currycomb and straw could not quiet the memory. Beyond the battlements, winter gathered strength. Clouds thickened, low and bruised, promising blizzard. In the rookery, ravens refused grain, croaking at unseen threats. In the Godswood, snow melted in a perfect circle around the weirwood's roots, exposing soft earth, as though dawn burned there while the rest of Winterfell froze. Night fell again, and in the depths of a tower chamber, Ned Stark unfolded a letter he had never meant to send. The truth of Jon Snow's birth, and wondered if time itself had lurched, driven by forces he could neither name nor command. The prince, the promise, the song. Whatever lay in those words now stirred in swaddling cloth just rooms away, and a gentle giant, kneeling among sleeping horses, whispered a name that was both question and plea. "Hodor," Willis said, gazing at the dark beneath the stable door where wind howled like distant wolves. Hodor, Hodor. He did not know whether he mourned or prayed, only that he felt the story wheel shifting, that in lifting a child, he might have lifted an entire age upon his shoulders, and he feared that the weight had only begun to settle. Willis awoke before dawn 3 days later, shaken from sleep by hoofbeats that thrummed through the floorboards of the loft as though the earth itself meant to rouse him. The young stallion he had tended late into the night was kicking at its stall, whinnying loud enough to wake every rooster for a mile. Straw flew. The doors rattled. Hodor. He thought first of the word, his name, his anchor, and then he scrambled down the ladder with hay still stuck to his curls. The stable smelled of panic sweat and peat smoke from smoldering braziers. A lantern hung dark. In the gloom, the foal's whites flared wide as moons. He murmured the syllable softly, the way a bard might ease into a lute string. Hodor. The syllable steadied him, not as prayer this time, but as rope across a chasm. He caught hold and felt footing return. He whistled low, drew the bolt, and slipped inside. The stallion reared, nearly striking rafters. Timber creaked in protest. Willis reached, gentle but unafraid. His shoulder still ached from that night in the Godswood. When he finally laid palm to trembling withers, warmth flooded him anew, that same strange heat which had pulsed from Jon's swaddling cloth. Thole settled, nickering apology. Willis stroked the velvet muzzle, felt a heartbeat hammer wild against his fingertips, and wondered whether the beast had dreamed, too, of winter trees and bleeding eyes. Wind moaned beyond stable walls. Somewhere on the ramparts, a watchman rang the dawn bell. Once, twice, thrice, each note dull, as if padded by heavy mist. Willis frowned, for mist seldom gathered in such cold. He brushed straw from his doublet, left the stall, and stepped out into pale half-light. The courtyard lay ghost-silent. Fog clung low, whirled around boot-tops like swamp vapors. Between fog banks, figures trudged, kitchen girls hauling baskets for pre-dawn baking, grooms leading ponies to the well. Their voices carried strangely, clipped or stretched by damp air. Atop the battlements, torches guttered despite no wind. Willis wiped his brow with a sleeve and found it damp, though he felt no sweat. Sir Roderick Castle strode from the armory, helm under one arm, gray mustache bristling with frost. "Boy," he barked on seeing Willis. "The kennel master's hounds are set to track south at first light. I want 2 coursers readied, no delay." Willis dipped his massive head and lumbered back inside. Routine steadies, he told himself. Harness, saddle, oats. That much he understood. Yet while he worked, his thoughts skirled like ravens round a corpse. He pictured Jon Snow lying in his cradle, blissfully unaware, small fist curled tight as a seed. He pictured the smear of sap that vanished, and the way Maester Luwin's eyes had widened. Most of all, he pictured the pool, black mirror cracked by prophecy he could barely name. Too soon. The words clung like burrs. Outside, the fog thickened until even the smithy's anvil bell sounded distant, as though hammered underwater. When Willis led the coursers out at sunup, if sunup it could be called, since no sun breached the gray, he saw Lord Stark upon the steps of the great keep. Ned's cloak was wolf gray, rime-silvered the fur at collar and cuff. The Lord conferred with Maester Luwin and Sir Roderick. Willis noticed how Ned's eyes flicked once toward the Godswood gate, then quickly away, as if the sight pained him. He also noticed Jon Snow within his foster father's arms, awake yet very still, watching all with solemn preternatural calm. In sunlight, Jon's eyes had often seemed gray-blue. Now, beneath thick clouds, they were near colorless, reflecting whatever lay before them. In this case, fog and stone and doubt. Willis halted the horses at the steps. He did not speak. Words belonged to others. Ned Stark nodded curt thanks, passed Jon to a wet nurse, and mounted. Sir Roderick joined him, and 4 guards filed behind. The small party set off across the yard toward the Hunter's Gate, vanishing into drifting swaths of mist as if swallowed by a curtain. The wet nurse carried Jon back inside. Willis watched them fade. Something clamped his chest, neither envy nor sorrow, but a terrible conviction of having nudged a domino, and now glimpsing its long, invisible line. He clenched reins until leather creaked. Old Nan's voice startled him. "Staring at ghosts, my sweet giant?" She approached, leaning on a crooked stick, shawl wrapped thrice around spindly shoulders. Her one good eye flicked from his face to the direction of the vanished riders. "Fog like this brews strange fancies. Best mind your chores, Willis." "Hodor," he said, more question than answer. "Yes, dear," she tutted. Hodor indeed. She patted his arm as though he were the child, and she the towering one. "Go see to the kennels. The pups are howling something fierce." He obeyed, grateful for purpose. Yet as he walked, he heard Nan mutter behind him, "Too soon." So faint he almost deemed it wind. The kennels rang with chaos. Hounds bayed at unseen quarry, pups whined, scrabbling claws against boards. The kennel master, soft-spoken Michael, waved Willis down. "They want nose to heel," Michael grumbled. "Snouts all in the air, as though some stink floats none of us smell. Even gray wind." He pointed to the young direwolf pup that had followed Robb Stark home from a forest hunt. "Want hush." Gray Wind's golden eyes gleamed through slats, more curious than frightened, but even he paced restless circles. Willis knelt, pressed ear to wood, listened. Beneath the din, a faint sound like distant drums echoed, steady, huge, subterranean. He leaned away. The dogs sensed it, whatever it was, some rumble too low for humankind. Michael cursed softly. "Hodor," Willis murmured, reaching through the bars to scratch Gray Wind's chin. The cubs stilled, ears flattening as if understanding. But the others only grew louder. Then came a horn blast from atop the eastern wall. A single high note, not alarm but the call signifying riders returning. Too soon, Willis thought. They left but minutes past. He stood, dusting knees, and stepped into fog. Across the yard, shapes coalesced. Ned Stark's party galloping back full tilt. At their head, the Lord held something bundled within his cloak. Sir Roderick's helm was on now, sword half drawn. The guards looked rattled. They dismounted near the smithy, and even through swirling vapors, Willis saw blood, staining Ned Stark's glove. Not his own blood. The bundle squirmed. Jon Snow pulled free of cloak folds, wailing shrill and sudden. The cry pierced fog and kennel uproar alike. In that instant every hound silenced. Muzzles lifted, tails tucked. An unnatural stillness swept the yard, as though heavens waited for sound to die. Ned barked orders. Fetch Lewin. Bar the hunter's gate until noon. Roderick mount 10 men with torches, then strode toward the keep, boots crunching. Blood dripped from cloak hem, spattering ground. Willis' legs carried him forward before mind could object. He saw clearly now. Ned's sword arm was uninjured. The blood belonged to something slung across Robert Glover's spare horse, San Elk, gutted, its belly black from quick field dressing. No ordinary hunt then. The elk's eyes were gone, sockets crusted over. More chilling, carved down its flank, deep into muscle, ran spiral glyphs that bled slow. Wylis recognized none but sensed meaning. Maester Lewin met Ned beneath the covered walk. They spoke in tight whispers. Lewin's face paled, and he reached toward Jon, checking pulse, looking for harm, but Ned shook his head. The boy is well, and thrust the elk's ivory shard of antler into Lewin's hand. The maester turned it, noted grooves along its length. More glyphs. Wylis hovered near a column, unseen amid bustle. The hounds remained hushed, as though something pressed their throats. But Grey Wind yipped once, a sharp note, staring not at the elk but at the Godswood gate behind. Fog glowed there with inner light, as if dawn burned inside the trees despite mid-morning hour. Lamplight blurred, and Wylis's vision swam. He tasted sap again, though none lay on tongue. A memory? Or prophecy? Rose. That carved cradle, the singing silence, the pool fracturing. The words too soon boomed. His limbs trembled. A groom jostled him, cursing, then noticed his pallor and backed away. Clamor rose as Sir Roderick's 10 men clattered through the yard, torches pluming smoke. The kennel master unlocked cages. Hounds, now docile, formed ranks behind huntsmen. Wylis watched until riders vanished once more. He wanted to follow, to know why blood and glyph and fog intertwined, but fear stapled him to stone. Instead, he turned and slipped back to the nursery level. None barred him entry when he muttered, "Hodor." He crept down the corridor lined with tapestries of wolves bounding through snow. From antechamber came Lady Catelyn's voice, sharp with worry. Wet nurses hushed her younger children. The door to Jon's room stood ajar, and within Maester Lewin pressed cool cloth to the babe's brow while Ned paced. Jon's earlier wailing had ceased, replaced by tiny whimpers, as though unresolved dreams pinched him. On a table lay the elk's antler shard, cleaned now, lines etched like rivers on a map. Wylis stepped over threshold without thinking. Ned halted. "Wylis," he said, voice low but heavy, acknowledging him not as nuisance but as variable in an equation whose answer he sought. Lewin looked up, surprise shading his features. Wylis dipped head. He wanted to apologize, to speak of nights and pools, but words broke upon his teeth. Ned studied him. "You have a knack for appearing where prophecy stirs," he said quietly. No accusation, yet Wylis winced. "Do you know this script?" The Lord gestured to antler. Wylis glanced, felt dizziness. Symbols blurred, rearranged to mimic frost-webbing glass. He shook head but sensed he did know in marrow if not mind. "Hodor," he might have said, but voice failed. Lewin answered for him. The glyphs approximate spirals reported in ancient sightings of the first men's barrow relics. Not quite runes. Not quite old tongue. An intermediary, perhaps. He touched one swirl. This, if mirrored, may denote birth or awakening. Ned frowned. It was carved raw on a dead elk. His gaze flipped to Jon. Not birth, but threat. Jon mewed. Wylis stepped closer, as if magnetized. Ned stiffened, but did not bar him. Wylis put massive finger in Jon's palm. Tiny fingers clutched. The babe stilled. Color returned to cheeks. Lewin breathed outward. "Fever breaks," he whispered. Ned nodded slowly. "Stay," he told Wylis. He trusts you. Those words felt like a chain. Heavy, honorable, terrifying. Minutes passed. John slept. Leuven opened codices, comparing marks on antler to sketched sigils of children's, script recorded by archmaesters long dead. Ned sent word to Ravens for White Harbor, for Deepwood Moat, for the Night's Watch, and Wyllis sat vigil, repeating under breath, Hodor, Hodor, a lullaby of one note. Beyond castle walls, Sir Roderick and his riders navigated strangling fog until they reached the clearing where the elk had been felled. They returned by dusk with more questions than answers. The ground there, an old Godswood outlier killed by iron axes decades earlier, was churned as though by hooves of invisible beasts. No prints, no droppings, no snapped branches, save those within a perfect circle, 30 paces across. In its center lay a bone-white spike, a segment of weirwood root, blasted free by some force, bleeding sap so dark it looked black. The riders would not touch it. They lashed it to poles and bore it back like plague-scourged cargo. When the root arrived in Winterfell's courtyard, ravens shrieked and battered cages until feathers filled air like ash. Catelyn Stark clasped her children tight, ordering extra guards atop their chambers. Maester Luwin had the root encased in a crate bound with copper runes of protection. Old superstition, he admitted. But caution never wounded. The crate he locked in a cellar beside pickled boar's feet and barley sacks. Still that night servants whispered of drum heartbeats under stone, and root sap seeped through crate slats despite layers of linen. Lord Stark dispatched a fast rider north to the wall, bearing plea for the new Lord Commander, Jor Mormont, to send word if similar phenomena plagued haunted forest or frostfang valleys. He also wrote at length to Howland Reed of the Neck, last known keeper of Crannogman lore. Ned sealed each letter with mud-brown wax and stamped the direwolf sigil deep. Darkness thickened by the time ravens flapped beyond outer walls. In his hayloft, Wyllis dreamt unsoundly. He walked again the Godswood path, each step sinking deeper as roots coiled ankles, climbing calves, thighs, until he could not move. Before him stood the heart tree, but twisted larger, trunk gaping like maw, and within its cavity sat the elk corpse, glyphs glowing ember red. The elk's antlers became branches, weaving into crown. Its eyes, restored now, opened, not animal, but human, and they were Joan's eyes. Wyllis screamed. The heart tree breathed out fog, and the fog became faces. Old Nan, Maester Luwin, Lord Stark, Catelyn, Bran, Arya, Robb, Sansa, Rickon, all drifting apart like leaves in stream. Then came pounding behind, hooves, drums, hearts, and he woke to find his own heart stamping ribcage. Morning showed bruise dark beneath his eyes. Yet duties awaited. He led horses to field, mended fence posts, toted oats. All day castlefolk eyed him with new reverence or distrust. He could not tell. Children hid behind barrels when he passed. Grown men lowered voices. He heard snatches, Godswood lad, giant's blood, prophecy walker. He hunched shoulders, feeling larger than ever. A mountain walking among folk who feared avalanches. At sunset Ned Stark requested his presence in the high hall. Wyllis trudged, dread heavy as chains. He entered lamplit chamber where tapestries of Stark battles flapped in draught. Ned stood before the hearth, steel-gray eyes reflecting flames. Beside him perched Maester Luwin, with leather folios spread on oak table. Map pins glinted. Wyllis, Ned said. Come. He motioned to bench. Wyllis sat gingerly, vast frame creaking wood. Ned clasped hands. I owe you thanks, he began. 3 nights now, whenever John's fevers spike, you come and the fevers fall. Wyllis blinked. He had not thought himself so observed. He had gone each night, yes, unable to rest else. Luwin believes your presence may soothe, Ned continued. Perhaps bond formed in womb of prophecy, I know not. But I will not ignore what helps my son. He paused, correcting himself. My nephew. The slip hung. Truth once sealed in blood and honor drifted between them. Luwin interjected. We would ask what you recall of the night in the Godswood, beyond what little you've managed. Willis' mouth opened, closed. He met Ned's gaze, earnest, stern. He tried to shape words, but only the familiar one came. "Hodor," he whispered. Ned exhaled, not impatient, but pained. "If that is all you can say, so be it." He looked to Luwin, who nodded. "Language is one tool of memory," the maester said gently. "But not only tool. The Citadel teaches certain methods. Smoke of green willow, draught of sweet milk, song of running water, to draw forth vision." Luwin produced a small vial of milky fluid. Willis recoiled. "No harm," Luwin assured. "You need not drink tonight. Simply know, we may attempt, with your leave, to glimpse what clouds your speech. For now, remain near Jon at dusk. Lady Caitlin will allow it under guard." Ned rested a hand on Willis' massive shoulder. "And, Willis, thank you." A lord's gratitude weighed heavier than accusations. Willis nodded, tears burning unbidden. He rose, murmured "Hodor," and left. That night, by candle flicker, he sat by Jon's cradle. Outside snow-bruised windows. Maester Luwin paced with kettle of willow bark steeping. Caitlin watched from door, expression taut as drawn bow. Ned held toddler Bran, who refused sleep and insisted the giant stay. Rickon suckled Thumb beside Rob on rug. Willis hummed. Jon's cheeks flushed and cooled, rising heat ebbing as though breeze slipped through. Luwin made notes. Candle smoked. Caitlin at last exhaled relief. Willis dozed where he sat against wall, and dream again took him, but gentler now. He walked with Bran along Godswood path, bathed in dawn, and Bran asked, "Do you hear the roots singing?" Across pools mirror new leaves, sprouted crimson veins. No elk, no blood. A seed of hope. Small but bright. Elsewhere in wintering north, beyond Last River and across the ridge of the lonely hills, a band of free folk trekked south. Frost giants, they called Willis kin once, now few remained in tall tales alone. These wildlings bore news of stranger things. Pines uprooted in perfect spirals. Weirwoods exuding darkness that smothered flame. Children vanishing into sudden mists. They reached the wall at Eastwatch, clamoring for refuge they had long spurned. Lord Commander Mormont sent Raven to Winterfell. New unrest in haunted forest. White shadows glimpsed, old symbols carved upon frozen bison. The raven flew fast, black wings slicing snow-laden sky. Message sealed with night's wax. At Winterfell the message arrived the same dawn Jones' fever broke for last time. Ned read, jaw grinding. He convened council of bannermen already trickling into castle at his summons. Robert Glover, Talhart, Manderly Envoy, Sir Roderick, Luwin. They gathered in Solar. Willis stood in corner, summoned but silent. Lord Stark spoke of signs ancient as the first men. Of strangers carving warnings in flesh. Of weirwood roots pulled like teeth. He told them prophecy might churn anew, and that his bastard, no, nephew, could stand at center. Eyes widened, but none scoffed. The blood-marked elk lay salted in cellar as mute witness. Maester Luwin set vial upon table. "This," he said, "is sweet milk of dream water. With Willis' consent we seek clearer memory of Godswood night. If indeed motives stir beyond mortal hands, we must know." All eyes slid to the giant. Willis felt heart hammer. Yet he pictured Jon's small fingers clutching his, Bran's wonder, Ned's gratitude. He nodded. They moved to Maester's tower, a round chamber lined with scrolls and astrolabes. Willis sat heavy in oaken chair. Gray-green light filtered through arrow slit. Luwin stirred the potion with silver rod, murmuring low chant. Willis sipped. Taste of summer grass, of stable dust at noon, of mother's hands. His eyes fluttered. Luwin bade him close them. Memory unfurled. The nursery hush, old Nan, the candle flicker. Unseen command urging him lift Jon. The corridor soft with shadow. Iron gate silent. Pool shining. Heart tree weeping. But now new strands wove. Voices in leaves. One high as child, one deep as earth. The high voice pleaded, "Carry him." The deep warned, "Not yet." Wylis saw himself a knot between ropes of fate, pulled both ways. He saw glyphs spiral from John's breath, shaping frost into runes. He saw blood-colored comets streak overhead, though sky was clear that night. He saw three eyes open in trunk and fix on him, sorrow-laden. Too soon the deep voice repeated with grief, not anger. Then the pool shattered, sending shards of starlight skyward, and Wylis stumbled back as memory collapsed. He jolted awake, chest heaving. Room spun. "Do..." Ned pressed hand to his shoulder. Lewin whispered, "What did you see?" Wylis closed eyes against vertigo. "Hodor," he rasped. Ned nodded, but Lewin persisted, coaxing details. Through halting gestures and yes-no questions answered with nods. They gleaned fragments. Two voices, disagreement, heart-tree sorrow. Runes breathed from John. A comet unseen in real sky. Lewin scribbled, frowning hard. "Comet," Ned mused. Years ago, his brother Benjen had told tales of a red star, foretelling dragons. None since the doom, Lewin argued. Yet Ward's recorded portents in starfall and flame. Tension thickened. Wylis slumped, drained. He felt neither heat nor cold, only empty echo where memory had sprawled. Lewin gave him water. Ned dismissed counsel for a moment, instructing guards to see Wylis rest. Days blurred. Snow piled high. Ravens winged constant, bringing tidings of minor famines, of ships lost in shivering sea, of free folk refugees massing at Skirling Pass. Yet one message cut deeper, from Howland Reed. The Crannogmen wrote in moss ink, "When trees bleed, time to listen. Guard the boy. Guard the door. Seed must sprout in season." Reed warned of dreamwalkers long sleeping beneath oaks, waking early spells doom. He closed with riddle. The gentle giant must hold the door until dawn. Ned shared letter with Lewin alone, then burnt it. Lewin's eyes narrowed at phrase, "Hold the door." "Hodor." Ned said nothing, but his burden grew heavier. Weeks passed. John thrived, first tooth emerging, black hair curling. Caitlyn's stiffness softened when she saw Giant calm the child. Bran toddled often into Godswood gate, while Septa Mordain chased after, scolding. The circle of melted snow around Hearttree expanded slowly, revealing black earth like ink blot spreading across parchment. Spring approached, yet winter refused departure. Maester Lewin's instruments showed mercury stuck. Wolves howled nights long, and sometimes their howls echoed by distant, deeper throats none could name. One evening, as twilight painted ramparts bruised lavender, Bran wriggled from Septa's grip and scampered toward Godswood while she scolded Robb. Wylis saw and followed, pace slow so child might not fear. Bran darted ahead, laughter echoing. Fog rose again, swirling across yard like returning memory. Wylis's gut twisted. He called softly, "Hodor." Bran giggled. The boy tugged open gate latch, no squeal, and vanished into trees. Wylis lunged. Fog swallowed him. The air within Godswood felt electric, prickling hair. He heard branches whisper, "Not yet, not yet." He called again, "Hodor." Panic churned. He glimpsed Bran near pool's edge, gazing at Hearttree's face, crimson tears glistening even in gloom. Bran knelt, touched sap. Wylis hobbled faster, knee flaring old pain. Roots shifted beneath leaves, subtle. The pool rippled though no breeze blew. Bran rose, eyes wide. "Wylis, the tree is singing," he breathed. No fear, only wonder. Wylis reached him, seized small hand. In that moment, ripples stilled and surface cleared. Reflected in water stood not Bran Hodor, but three figures. A grown man tall, cloak of raven feathers. A direwolf with burning eyes. A woman armored in scales of ice. Behind them towered Hearttree, burning green flame. Wylis gasped. Bran jerked. Reflection shattered. Bran's voice quavered, first hint of fear. What was that? Wylis pulled him back from pool. Tree branches groaned overhead. Deep voice in leaves rumbled. Hold! Door. Willis understood not mind but bone. He scooped Bran into arms and turned to flee. Fog thickened into walls. Paths shifted. Gates hid. Hodor, he said, chanting. Bran clung to neck. Ahead he spied faint torch where Septa called. He barreled forward, burst through gate into courtyard. Fog dispersed. Septa Mordain scolded until Bran pouted apology. Willis set boy down, heart drumming like smithy hammer. Over shoulder, he saw melted circle at gate fringe, now broader. Sap trailed from gate hinge, sticky red. He wiped foot, found smear on sole. That night he dreamed again. Bran older, eyes white, riding ravens across midnight sky. Jon wielding flaming sword. Deary wolves howling chorus. Willis himself braced against wooden door, unseen force battering other side. Every strike echoed through ribs. He woke shouting, Hodor, and found sweat iced upon skin though hearth blazed. Maester Luwin recorded all. He taught Bran letters, yet found child scribbling spiral glyphs unbidden. Arya fashioned them in snowdrifts with stick. Sansa complained hairbrush, lying bedside, warped into curling rune. Servants whispered, castle haunted by shapes of turning wheels. Ned sent for more allies, but word came of southern turmoil. King Robert's health waned. The hand, Jon Arryn, died. Ned was summoned south. Torn, he debated leaving. Catelyn argued winter north, needed warden. Yet Robert might name Ned protector. Refusal risked realm. The night before departure, Ned visited Godswood alone. He knelt before Hearttree and set palm upon its root. Sap oozed, staining glove as before. He whispered, promised to guard nephew's secret. To keep giant close, to return swift. At dawn, Ned, along with daughters and guard, rode south. Jon Snow remained, fostered still, for Ned dared not bring him near King's Landing intrigues. Maester Luwin assumed more charge. Ser Roderick oversaw garrison. Willis found life emptier yet heavier without Ned's steady presence. Summer's first warm day dawned weeks later, but snowflakes fell still. Crows died on castle roofs, throats clogged with ice crystals. Fishermen dragged nets of silver-eyed salmon that sang like stones ringing. Luwin wrote frantic missives. Nature misbehaves. Prophecy bleeds into world unchecked. Reed's second letter arrived, winter's seed cracks. Hold the door. Prince must breathe last of childhood beneath boughs. Danger rides on one eye burning blue. Luwin puzzled. Willis fingered parchment, and though he could not read, the glyphs at margins felt familiar. Near autumn's turn, thunderheads bruised sky, and Winterfell shook beneath longest storm in memory. Lightning struck towers, setting thatch ablaze. Men fought fire all night. Amid chaos, a gate guard screamed. Something moved within Godswood. Willis rushed, torch in hand. He found sap trail glowing, leading toward pool. Wind howled, branches thrashed. He pushed deeper. At pool's rim stood stranger tall as Ned, cloaked in stag hide, antler helm crowning shadow face. In one hand he held a root twist-like staff. Runes pulsed along bark. Stranger did not turn. Willis raised torch. Hodor, he warned. Stranger knelt, plunged staff into earth. Ground trembled. Water boiled. The heart tree's crimson eyes flashed open bright as sunrise through wine. Sap geysered, splattering Willis. Heat seared then cooled to chill marrow. Stranger spoke words guttural, ancient. Willis understood none but felt meaning. Awaken, return, open. He charged, bellowing, Hodor! Torch swung. Stranger vanished. No, stepped backward into trunk as if bark were door. Flames licked air. Smoke curled. Tree's face warped, opened wider. Blue fire erupted within hollow. Willis stumbled, dropped torch. It sputtered in snow melt. Heart tree's hollow belched icy wind. Rushing outward like breath reversed. Voices layered within. High plea, deep warning, thousand whispers. Hold the door, echoed louder. He threw body against hollow. Bark froze solid beneath palms yet yielded like flesh. Wind hammered. He braced, immense back, sealing gap. Behind him, branches lashed. Before him, world of wintry stars swirled within trunk. If opened fully, he knew something immense would stride into courtyard, blue-eyed, stag-crowned, bearing end of dawn. Fear flooded, but also purpose, as if destiny sobered within blood. Giant must hold door until dawn. He planted feet, arms splayed, wind battered, cut skin, tore tunic. He screamed. Hodor, not one word now but many, hope, shield, promise. Snow whipped into vortex. Heart tree howled rage or lament. For hours he stood, weight of prophecy crushing shoulders. Memories rippled. Nursery hush, pool shards, Bran's wonder. Joan's fever, Ned's trust. Every moment led here. As eastern sky paled, storm waned. Wind eased. Blue fire dimmed. Hollow shrank, bark knitting. At first light, silence. Willis sagged, breath ragged. Blood iced across knuckles. He stepped back. Heart tree pristine once more. Only groove of antler helve remained in earth. Footsteps crunched behind. Bran, now 4, entered clearing in furs too large. He approached Giant, placed tiny hand on bloody tunic. The roots stopped singing, he whispered. His eyes searched Willis. Gratitude shone, though boy comprehended little. Willis knelt, tears carving clean paths through grime. He hugged Bran gently. Hodor, he said, voice hoarse but steady. Maester Luwin probed aftermath, found no sign of stranger, only Willis wounds and new rune etched into trunk. Spiral broken in center. He feared meaning but recorded faithfully. Caitlin ordered extra guards. Sir Roderick posted crossbowmen around Godswood. Word from south darkened. Ned Stark accused of treason, imprisoned. King Robert, dead. The realm pitched toward war. Winterfell convulsed with grief and outrage. Robb Stark, only 15, gathered banners. Before marching, he visited Godswood to seek strength. There Bran asked to accompany. Willis carried him. Robb knelt, swore vengeance. Leaves rustled with sigh like old North weeping. As host mustered, Willis remained behind, tasked with protecting young Prince, Jon, and Bran, and Rickon. Caitlin rode south to treat with Riverlander kin. Luwin stood anchor. The night before Robb's departure, Jon reached his first named day. Willis rocked him by hearth, singing soft Hodor. Bran beside traced spiral broken rune in wax droplets, saying, "One day the door will open again." Willis swallowed, heart heavy. He whispered to Bran, voice almost true words. "Then we hold it once more." Bran's eyes widened, for he heard more than one word. He smiled. Willis blinked tears. The giant's speech might never mend, yet duty spoke louder, for in his chest resounded vow. While breath held, he would bar that door. Between now and too soon, winter deepened. Ravens carried tidings of Robb's victories, Ned's death. War's widening maw. Snow lay permanent. Jon Snow began toddling. Deary wolves roamed. Bran climbed shattered tower and dreamed of flying. And at night, when Hearttree sighed, Willis sat in silent yard, gaze fixed on Godswood gate, massive shoulders ready. Too soon may come again, a giant would meet it. One word forged into shield that none could breach. Hodor. Door. Snowfall thickened through the long night, as though the sky itself meant to smother Winterfell beneath a downy shroud, muting every cobblestone clack and smith hammer ring, until the castle breathed in hushes. Smoke from braziers hung low, trapped beneath ice-heavy clouds, and the wind skirled around crenellations like a wolf searching for a gap in the wall. Deep in the gatehouse, torches hissed with frost, their orange tongues flickering against stone so cold the very mortar cracked. In the courtyard, lanterns glowed haloed in white, and every bootprint filled in moments, erased as though no soul had tread there at all. It was a season for secrets, and the snow kept them well. Willis moved through this pall of quiet with the deliberate gravity of a man bearing unseen load. His towering frame loomed in half-light between the granary and the guardrooms, a cloaked shape that startled sparrows from their roost and made stable cats pause mid-prowl. He felt each flake strike his cheeks, melt and slide, tiny cold rivers mapping worry lines. Old Nan claimed she could read like runes. She teased that if she ever went blind, she could still tell his thoughts by the creases on his brow. Tonight those creases were deep ravines, carved by fears older than the snows of the long night. He had just left the nursery, where Jon Snow, now toddling on sturdy legs, dreamed fitfully in a cradle strengthened with ironwood slats. On most nights, Wyllis waited until the boy's breathing settled into a gentle rhythm, then slipped away to tend chores before dawn. Yet tonight unease gnawed his belly, a gnawing born of whispers on the wind and the heart trees sighing. He had lingered longer, stroking the dark curls at Joan's brow, humming his single word in soft croon. At last he forced himself away, promising return before the second watch ended. But each step that carried him from the child felt like a stone he laid upon fragile ice. Bran Stark sat propped in the window of the broken tower as Wyllis crossed the yard, tiny silhouette haloed by lamplight. The boy waved, a contraption of pulleys and knotted ropes. Maester's design, Lord's indulgence, allowed Bran to haul himself into vantage points, despite legs that still refused proper strength ever since that fall from the bridgewalk months earlier. Though summer, the direwolf patrolled the interior halls these days, Bran considered the broken tower his private astronomer's perch, and he named each winter star in hushed wonder to anyone who would listen. Wyllis raised a gloved hand. Bran motioned him closer. The giant obeyed, snow crunching beneath boots. Inside the tower stairwell, breath plumed like pipe smoke. Bran smiled, pale but bright-eyed. A parchment rested in his lap, ink still wet. "I wrote the song the roots keep singing," he whispered, as though stone walls could leak secrets. "Master Luwin says it's only fancy, but fancy isn't always false, is it?" He squinted. "Fancy is how a wolf dreams of sky." Wyllis tilted his head. Bran extended parchment. Upon it spiraled a symbol, a circle within a circle broken by jagged line. Beneath, words scrawled in childish hand. SQL. When the circle breaks, the door will open. Hold fast the hand that shuts it, or winter will scream forever. Wyllis' heart thudded. He remembered the rune carved in heart-tree bark, the howl of wind torn from trunk, the command that etched itself in every sinew. Hold the door. Bran's handwriting wavered, as if guided by a tremor not his own. "Summer's restless," Bran continued, voice dropping. "He paces at the foot of my bed, hackles up. He hears the same song, I think." Snowflakes drifted in through shattered arrow slits, melting on Bran's parchment, smearing ink. He frowned, pulled cloak to shelter the page. "Will you watch Jon tonight?" Wyllis nodded, pressing palm against Bran's small shoulder. The boy's bones felt fragile, but the skin beneath linen radiated heat like forged steel. Bran looked relieved. "Then I'll sleep, maybe. Dreams come easier when you're near." "Namdain." "Hodor," Wyllis murmured, squeezing gently before retreating down the stair. Crossing the yard again, he caught flicker of lamplight behind Sep's frosted windows. Old Nan sat by branched candlestick telling Rickon and the kitchen girls another tale of white shadows, and her voice rose, thready but fierce, reciting half-remembered verse about lantern spiders that spun snares between Godswood trees. Wyllis wondered whether any myth Nan told was ever wholly fiction. Some part of him suspected she merely stitched half-truths into shape of story, wearing mischief as cloak. The rookery loomed ahead, ravens restless. Their muffled croaks rattled rafters. Maester Luwin stood near the flight slit, parchment in hand, reading by smoky torch. He started when Wyllis entered, then motioned him over. "A reply from Eastwatch," Luwin sighed. "More wildlings crossing the frozen bays. They speak of dead things in the woods that neither rot nor rest." He dragged fingers through salt and iron beard. "And yet, King Robb must deal with Lord Tywin's host gathering at Harrenhal, while winter sends omens we can scarcely name." He folded the parchment. "I will raise watchmen on each tower tonight. Wylis spoke his one word softly. Hodor. As though offering condolence. Lewin's stern face softened. I know, my friend. You bear the weight with us. He dipped quill in ink and began fresh letter. Wylis waited, uneasy. At last, Lewin asked. The boy? How does he fare this eve? Hodor, Wylis said. But in the timbre, Lewin heard enough, unease, but no fever. Good. Let him dream of summer fields while he may. He sighed again, sealing the scroll. Wax dripped scarlet. Make certain the gates are barred. A man saw lights beyond the ridge road. Blue sparks, he said, dancing through drifts without print. Lewin shook head. Snow plays tricks, but I trust the caution. Wylis turned to go, but Lewin caught his sleeve. Remember what Howland Reed wrote. Seed must sprout in season. There is purpose in these trials, though we mortals rarely glimpse design. Keep faith. He pressed a small leather pouch into Wylis' massive hand. Powdered willow bark, juniper, and ghost grass. Scatter a pinch in the hearth of the nursery. Fragrance wards uneasy dreams. Wylis tucked pouch inside tunic and rumbled thanks. He passed through kitchens where steam from kettles fogged rafter beams. Gilly, the steward's niece, stirred onions into venison broth. She touched his arm and slipped him a heel of black bread thick with mutton fat. Tot. Wylis thanked her, chewing slowly as he walked. The simple kindness steadied his pulse. Around him, Winterfell's stones felt alive, expanding, contracting, sighing beneath drifts. Every corridor seemed to hold echo of distant footfalls, as if unseen procession moved just out of sight. When he reached the nursery corridor, he glimpsed Sir Roderick Castle at far end, gray whiskers twitching, speaking low with two guards of the watch. They parted ways, and Roderick approached Wylis, eyes sharp despite fatigue. All well with the young lord? He asked. Wylis dipped head. Roderick scratched chin. I'll station a man at each stair. If anything stirs, you shout. He hesitated. Or do whatever it is you do. A rare grin cracked Roderick's stern mask, though worry quickly chased it away. We rely on you more than you know. Hodor, Wylis murmured, and Roderick clapped him shoulder before striding off, sword rattling against mail. Within the nursery, hush reigned. Linen curtains billowed from heat of braziers. Shadows danced across beams overhead, forming shapes of knights and wolves, then melding into mere flicker. Robb's carved cradle stood empty. He rode with his host now, but Jon's remained. Wylis knelt, scattering pinch of Lewin's herb powder into glowing coals. The hearth sputtered, releasing scent reminiscent of pine groves after storm. Jon shifted, eyelids fluttering. Wylis pulled rocking chair close, settled his massive frame, and began slow back and forth rhythm while humming his single refrain. Hours passed. Outside, wind mounted, rattling shutters. Guards called shift change, bells tolled once, twice. Wylis felt warmth of hearth seep into bones, and his eyes drooped. Yet he sensed rather than heard a change in air. A hush inside the hush, as though Castle inhaled and forgot to exhale. He sat upright, heart thumping. Flames in brazier elongated, tongues of blue licking iron rim. Smoke drifted not upward but sideways, curling toward door. Wylis rose, crept to threshold, listening. Corridor lay dim, only one lantern burning far end. Floorboards whispered with each step, though he tried for silence. He passed tapestry depicting the burial of kings in the crypts, faces of ancient Starks wrought in thread. Their stitched eyes seemed to follow him. Halfway down corridor, chill brushed nape like ice-cold breath. He turned, expecting guard, but no one behind. Smoke still trailed from nursery hearth, twisting along ceiling beams toward stairwell. Wylis followed, uneasy. At landing he peered down. Nothing but black. Yet he smelled frost, and something else. Scent of leaf rot and river mud, like fenlands in thaw. Utterly foreign to Winterfell's dry cold. A gust extinguished lantern. Darkness swallowed corridor. Wylis heard sound then. Not footsteps, but slow scrape of wood against stone, repeating. Drag. Pause. Drag. His spine prickled. He willed voice, but only breath hissed. "Hodor," he whispered, barely audible. Scrape halted. Silence stretched. When he risked step forward, a shape detached from gloom a dozen paces away, tall and narrow as standing doorboard, edges rippling like frosted glass. Blue motes flickered within, arranging themselves into curling spiral. Lightly, it floated across floorboards without sound. Smoke from nursery coals streamed straight into it, vanishing. Wireless froze. The shape loomed nearer, mere yards now, and he saw through it faintly. The stones of wall beyond warped, as if glimpsed through pond ice. Heart hammered. He remembered the stranger in the Godswood, the hollow of the heart tree, the command. Hold. Behind him lay nursery, John sleeping. He stepped backward, arms widening, massive bulk filling passage. The shape drifted closer, spiral intensifying, each mote bright sapphire. Cold rolled off in waves, rimed frost-coated floorboards, creeping up wireless boots. He felt heat flee limbs, yet he stood firm, bracing elbows against walls. A voice, not sound, but vibration, filled skull, open. The spiral pulsed with each syllable. Willis shook head. "Hodor," he said louder. The moat swirled, spiral tightening, and a single horizontal seam parted center of shape like eye-opening. Beyond seam lay emptiness deeper than night. Wind howled from within, sucking at air in corridor. Tapestry snapped taut, ripping stitches. Willis leaned, muscles knotting. If seam widened, corridor would become throat-swallowing nursery. He roared wordless, a bellow that shook rafters. He thrust hand into shape. Cold bit. Skin splitting as though plunged into liquid winter. He grabbed nothing. Void had no substance. Yet he pushed, flexing sinew honed, carrying half-grown foals. Spiral motes scattered at touch, swirling chaotic. Voice resounded again. Opened. Willis ground teeth. He thought of John's fist gripping his finger, of Bran smiling at root songs, of Ned's trust heavy as chain. No. He drove forward. Seam shuddered, edges cracking like ice fracturing underfoot. In sudden implosion of blue sparks, the shape collapsed inward, vanishing with muted pop. Frost exploded outward, coating beams. Willis staggered, breath ragged, blood splattering from cracked knuckles. Corridor lay empty once more, as though nothing unnatural had crossed it. Lantern reignited, wick flaring spontaneously, casting golden glow across frost-rimed stones. At far end, two guards turned corner, torches raised. They gaped at sight. Giant bloodied, frost steaming, tapestry torn. 7 above, one exclaimed. What devilry? Willis leaned against wall, sliding to knees. "Hodor," he managed, voice low. The guards rushed forward. One sprinted to raise alarm. The other knelt, examining Frost. His torch hissed where flame met ice. Maester Luwin arrived moments later, robe flapping. Sir Roderick bounded upstairs, sword drawn. Catelyn Stark came too, hair unbound, face taut. They surveyed corridor. Frost patterns, spider-webbed walls, each branch forming broken spiral identical to Bran's parchment rune. Luwin's eyes widened behind lenses. He scraped sample into vial. He touched tapestry cloth. It crumbled to frigid dust. Jon's wail pierced hush. Catelyn hurried to cradle, while Luwin tended Wylla's cracked hands, wrapping them in linen steeped in pine resin. "You saved him," Luwin murmured. Wylla shook head, but Luwin held gaze. "No, you did, and you may need do so again." Roderick posted 4 more men at corridor's mouth. They hammered rune-carved stakes into floorboards on Luwin's instructions, binding them with copper wire. Catelyn insisted on moving Jon's cradle to her own chamber, but Bran argued that nursery, south-facing, near Godswood, was safest, for roots watched there. In the end, compromise. Cradle stayed, but Wylla's bedded in adjoining room. Doorless archway between. Sir Roderick grumbled about aesthetics. Bran grinned triumph. That dawn, ravens screeched until rookery rang. Luwin read new missive from the wall. Patrol found ring of frozen trees shaped like spiral, bodies of free folk arranged at center like spokes. All eyes plucked. No tracks south. The council met again. Wylus sat bruised and bandaged. Lewin proposed forging circle of fire glyphs around Godswood Gate, copper and obsidian. Roderick pledged blacksmith labor. Caitlin prayed at Septite. Bran etched rune in snow outside crypt stair and claimed it. Hummed. Evening fell violet. In the hall, minstrels played for remaining household to drown dread. Wylus did not attend. He lingered near Godswood Gate as smiths hammered copper shields into rings. He watched sparks fly, felt each clang jolt ribs. Gray wind, visiting from Rob's absent pack, padded up, sniffed copper, then snarled at gate. Wylus laid massive hand on Wolf's head. The beast calmed, but licked at blood seeping through bandage. Wylus' mind drifted to Pool, where visions showed direwolf and flaming sword. He wondered if fate already etched on bark, or if choices still carved new lines. Later that night, Bran crept to nursery as Wylus rocked John. The boy carried small leather bundle. "I made these." He unwrapped 3 seeds of old oak coated in wax. "Plant them in circle outside window. The roots will listen." Wylus blinked. He accepted seeds, pocketing them. Bran nodded, solemn. "Tell the door not to open again." "Hodor," Wylus agreed. At moonrise he slipped to courtyard, sowed seeds beneath snow, then returned to his vigil. Flames in hearth crackled orange-green around juniper ghostgrass mixed dot. John slept deep, one thumb tucked in mouth, soft snore like doves cooing. Wylus let lids close, shoulders easing. He did not see fog coil outside shutter, nor hear heart trees sigh. But somewhere in distant dream he stood before door of black iron banded in pale wood. And beyond door he sensed winter's endless moan. He braced palms upon planks. Voices behind urged, "Open for dawn." Others urged, "Hold." He wept wordless, torn between. When he woke, snowstorm had passed and dawn spilled rose gold across sill. John gurgled happily. Bran shouted from corridor. The seeds sprouted overnight, green shoots pushing through snow. Lewin came running, astonished. "Impossible," he muttered, kneeling. Shoots already bore crimson leaves, sap glistening dot. Spring in midwinter. Wylus touched leaf, warm, vibrant. Bran clapped, delighted. The shoots formed crude circle, mirroring copper, one smith's forge near Godswood. Lewin whispered, "2 rings, flesh and flame. Perhaps line holds yet." That afternoon, word arrived. Robb Stark crowned king in the north after great victory. Joy rippled, tempered by grief for Ned. Horns blew, ale flowed. Yet tension edged celebration. War to south. Frost to north. Door in corridor. Wylus watched from shadows, raising mug only after Bran pressed one into his hand. He met Caitlyn's eyes across hall. Unspoken gratitude passed. Giant saving little ones. She raised goblet in silent salute. He flushed, ducked head, murmuring Hodor. Night again. Lewin asked Wylus to recount corridor encounter, coaxing detail through gestures. They sat by brazier. Wylus drew shape in soot. Tall rectangle with spiral center and seam across. Lewin frowned. Others call them ice doors. Gates between realms. Rare in lore, but tied to weirwood sorcery. They open where blood of promise runs. He eyed Wylus. Your blood perhaps is key. Wylus grimaced. Blood of giants. Some whispered. Could that blood hold door once children of forest sang it closed? Lewin dabbed ointment on cracked knuckles. Whatever the truth, it seems you alone can seal them. If more doors appear, find strength within. But remember, no one stands alone forever. He clasped Wylus' wrist, gentle. In days that followed, Winterfell prepared for possibility of siege, despite war distant. Smiths quenched blades. Archers drilled. Wildlings seeking refuge arrived by handful, gaunt and frostbitten. Caitlyn opened gates, though wary, for their tales chilled bone. Pale shadows walking blizzards, killing living, raising dead. One man swore he saw a giant of ice antlers, shepherding spectral elk across Moonfoot Valley. At mention, Wylus stiffened. Bran begged stories nightly. One wildling woman, hair knotted with raven bones, told of a one-eye king who commanded doors of frost. He rides wake of comets, she whispered to Bran, voice cracking, seeks prince born beneath bleeding star to drink his fire. Bran glanced at Wylus. Nobody missed it. After curfew bells, Wylus carried Jon through gallery, lulling him. Outside, wind shrieked but did not penetrate stone. He passed window slit and glimpsed faint red streak in eastern sky. Not dawn, midnight. A comet. His stomach sank. Luwin had scoffed at old tales of red dragons in sky, yet here was smear of bloodlight painting clouds. The same star he saw in vision above Pool. He hurried to Maester's tower. Luwin already at astrolabe, charting. New wanderer, he muttered. Tail red as flame. Strange season for such. He marked parchment, unconvinced. Wylus touched glass, fogging it. Comet's tail writhed like vein across Starfield. That night, ravens refused roost, cawing until sunrise. Bran dreamt of flying through Red River sky, pursued by staghorn shadow. Jon slept peacefully, unaware world bent around him. Morning council, Luwin reported comet to Catelyn. She crossed herself, whispering, "Dragon's breath." Roderick posted double archers. Wylus planted second ring of brand seeds inside copper circle. Within hours shoots sprouted leaves shimmering ruby under comet glow. Gardeners crossed themselves, muttering witches' work. 2 nights later, the heart trees weeping intensified. Sap flowed thick like wine. Bran claimed he heard it speak in father's voice. He wheeled chair to trunk at dusk, pressing ear, lips moving. Wylus hovered nearby. Suddenly Bran cried, eyes rolling back, hand clutching bark. Summer howled from courtyard. Wylus sprang, lifting boy away. Bran convulsed once, then sagged. He whispered, "Door soon." Luwin examined him, found no fever, only exhaustion. "Green dreams," he declared. Catelyn fretted, but Bran insisted he felt fine. Wylus carried him to bed, staying till sleep claimed him. Then Wylus trudged to Godswood alone, kneeling before heart tree, sap glistening dark. He laid bandaged hand on bark. Cold seeped, but no hollow opened. Instead he felt pulse. Slow, deep, ancient, matching rhythm of his own heart. He breathed word. Hodor. A sigh rustled leaves, almost reply. He closed eyes. Vision bloomed. Endless white plain, doors of ice standing an army strong, and before them a lone figure, himself, clutching sword not of steel but of living wood aflame with green fire. Behind, children and wolves gathered. Jon groaned, sword of dawnlight in hand. Shadows advanced. He saw himself push door closed as others fled. Then nothing. He jerked back trembling. Heart tree, quiet again. Snowflakes drifted. He whispered vow. Hold until last beat. Nights turned to weeks. War's tide shifted. Letters arrived less frequent. Yet Winterfell held fast. No further doors appeared. Jon learned to speak first words. Ma, then Bran, then, to everyone's wonder, and Bran's amusement, Hodor. Wylus laughed, tears bright. The word sounded different from Jon's lips. Softer, hopeful. One dawn, as comet faded, a horn blast rolled across walls. A rider, from south, banner of direwolf, limp in wind. Robb's envoy. He bore news of victory at River Run, of King Robb's wish that Bran and Rickon light watchfires each night as symbol of hope. He also bore sword forged in Riverlands for loyal stable giant who saved the king's brother. A bastard sword, broad as boat oar but balanced, pommel carved into closed-door sigil. Wylus accepted, awestruck. He swung it once. Weight felt like extension of arm. Bran named it Gatekeeper. Luwin recorded gift, remarking prophecy's humor. That evening, under pale orange sky, Bran held ceremony. Children, servants, guards gathered near Godswood. Bran declared Winterfell's strength grew from roots of trust, giant's courage, child's dream. He directed smiths to plant gatekeeper upright in earth beside copper ring. Wireless tried to protest, weapon best at hand, but Bran insisted sword belonged to tree until needed, a key that locks and unlocks. Wireless reluctantly plunged blade into soil. It hummed, faint vibration, uphilt. Leaves rustled approval. As feast commenced in hall, music spilling out, Wireless lingered. He touched gatekeeper's pommel once more. Frost formed delicate spiral upon blade, then melted. He felt peace, rare and gentle. Children chased each other between tents. Jon toddled after Cat. Summer lounged by fire. For a moment, Winterfell seemed cradle of dawn. Yet on horizon, north beyond river, thunderheads massed bruise purple. Lightning danced within, silent but fierce. Welles watched, a knot tightening again. He whispered promise. Whole. In moonless dark hours, Dor might come again, with staghorn shadow or hosts of icy echoes. But he would stand, giant of stable and of prophecy. Arms wide, voice one word, forging shield. And until world's final dawn, that word would be enough. Hodor.